believe there is more? If you don't believe there's more, then you got a boring God.
One resolute, praying, believing man or woman today can bring a spiritual awakening to an entire community. Something deep inside of me was calling out to the deep of God. And I said, Lord, there's gotta be more.
Hey everyone, welcome to the There's More podcast. I do not know what episode number this is. I want to say it's 38, just off the top of my head, but I have no idea. My name is Stephen Nix. This is Brent Cooper right here, and we have a special guest today with us. We have a guy by the name of Tanner Vines. Tanner is a uber talented individual. He's going to be smiling right now and be like, no, you're crazy. Tanner is good at a lot of stuff, and he's a guy that I look up to in a lot of areas, and he's probably like, no, whatever. But seriously, like he leads worship at Garden First Baptist. You've probably seen him on TV on Sunday mornings. I mean, he's up there all the time, does a phenomenal job. He does stuff with the college, with the high school, so in the young professionals, I guess, too, right? So anyway, Tanner does a lot of stuff. Like I said, he works with media. He's a guy I learn a lot from, I'll just say that. So Tanner, welcome to the There's More podcast.
Thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be here. This is a big opportunity for me.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a wildly popular podcast. So we have people that are lined up to get on this show. So, you should feel, very special that you're on the show today.
I do. Thanks.
We even have, because Corona's changed, we even have golden ticket seats.
We do. We have some people back in the back. Yeah. We appreciate y'all being here this morning. That's a complete joke, by the way.
There's no one back there, which is incredible. So I have a question real quick. Were you ever a part, or did you ever watch the Generation Band or see the Generation Band or know anything about the Generation Band? That's going way back, by the way. That's like 10 years plus, right?
He can tell you more about the Generation Band than we can.
I was going to say it's probably part of what I was going to talk about later, but a lot of the reason that I ever wanted to pick up a guitar and lead worship was because of the Generation Band. I was the Generation Band fan.
That's so funny. Well, every one of you.
Well, so, no. and I remember actually us having, we would be practicing some nights. I mean, it was, try to do once a week, and I remember even on, I guess it was maybe some Wednesday nights, I would hear after the youth service, Open Gates Awaits.
Yeah. Open Gates Await was our Generation Band knockoff.
Yes.
We wanted to be just like Generation Band that happened on Thursday nights. So we would just set the stage on Wednesday evening after the students left, just so you guys were ready to go on Thursday.
That's exactly right. And honestly, like from our point of view, just being able to lead in that aspect and during that ministry and that time was incredible. But to see that we had an impact on younger people, obviously, we weren't expecting anything like that, to happen. We just wanted to worship, and we wanted God to move in the ministry and in the services that we had. And that happened a lot. But to see how I have people come up to me all the time, it's like, man, the worship that we got to experience at the Generation changed my life. Or, y'all taught me how to worship. Or, hey, you were a huge inspiration. That's, y'all are the reason why I picked up a guitar and started singing, kind of like you. And now Tanner's, I say up on the big stage on Sundays doing his thing. So it is very encouraging, to know that. And it's nothing, I promise you, it's nothing that we did, because we probably should have taken some time to spend with you guys to try to teach you a little bit more. But we didn't think that we were worthy enough to teach. I'll be honest with you.
And we honestly didn't know what we were doing, so we were kind of thrown in, if we were just being completely transparent. So, just what Stephen said, I think God allowed our season of worship. We thought we were going to be helping and minister and helping do all that, which I think we did. But I think it was also from the perspective of getting a chance to see people worship, seeing people experience freedom, and in an age group of people that are unchurched, from the 18 to the 25-year-old generation. When our last service, I think that we had the chairs out, there was probably 600 or 700 people literally lifting their hands to the Lord of Lords. And it was, like Stephen said, it's nothing that we did. And I think from your perspective now, you're getting a chance to lead worship all the time. And it has nothing to do with the band or how musically talented you are. But when you get a chance to usher the people into the throne room and to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords and saying, we're about to give everything back to you, you really feel like you're nothing. And we got a chance to experience people saved in every setting, from hundreds of people to 6 people. We led worship with, like we said before, there was like 6 people and 4 of them got saved.
That was true.
But we get a chance to see that has nothing to do with us. And it was almost a joke when Andy said, we need y'all to start up a band in about 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
And honestly, it was, and this is the reason we didn't feel, worthy enough to teach somebody else. And like Brent said, we didn't know what we were doing. And that is the God's to honest truth. Like, we did not know what we were doing. Literally, the first band practice that we had, Bryant Jones was on the keyboard, and he was leading the band. And he was like, I need you or Cooper to play acoustic. And I'm like, acoustic what? He's like, well, guitar.
He said, well, the other one has to play bass.
The other one's going to be playing bass. And so we flipped a coin.
Yeah, well, Steven's got a better face. He can sell more T-shirts and better voice. So
I ended up playing guitar because I had literally knew nothing about the bass, and I happened to buy an acoustic guitar whenever I graduated high school, my graduation money, because one of my best friends, Ryan Keedy, he had an acoustic guitar, and he would play it when we hang out. I'm like, man, that's the coolest thing ever. I wish I could play guitar. So I bought one of my graduation money. It's actually this guitar right here. That's it. The old Fender there.
Makes for a great set piece.
It does. But anyhow, we didn't. The first practice I literally did not know. It was. I still remember the song that we practiced. Because it was a nightmare. It was "Let My Words Be Few" by Matt Redman, and the chords that were on there, I had no idea what those chords were. I could play G, C, D, and E minor, and that was really the only thing that I could play. And so when I saw that, and I'm like, this capo, I don't know where the capo goes to help me with this, and that's really all I can still play now is G, C, D, E minor. That's really all you need.
That's every worship song, right?
You just move the capo up and down, you're good.
But like, I remember that practice and not getting anything right. I remember leaving thinking, this is not going to work out. Like, I'm way in over my head. I can play GC, but like anything more than that, like, I'm not going to be able to do this.
But it's going to be a train wreck, so people should come to watch.
Yes, absolutely.
More than anything. So, well, that's cool to see that. I didn't know that. Honestly, I didn't know the backstory that y'all had started something else. But obviously, something happened to kind of shape you into the worship setting. So, kind of carry us through. Where your faith story comes in and how it ended up leading to where you are now of leading worship. Every Sunday.
Yeah. So I think we had talked a little bit before we started about how, my testimony is like a lot of Southern Baptists or a lot of people in our area's testimony. I was raised in church. I have an amazing family who, God-centered and had us in church as soon as we could walk. But really my love for Jesus didn't happen until I was in middle school. I was saved when I was probably eight years old, baptized after Vacation Bible School, but I didn't fall in love with Jesus until middle school. And I remember the video, one of our student leaders sat me down and we watched Louis Giglio. What was it? How Great Is Our God? He talks about if the earth was a golf ball. I always say that.
I actually watched that a couple of weeks ago. I saw it live in Birmingham, I think, when they came to Birmingham.
That's right.
But I watched it again probably a couple of weeks ago just because it's good to refresh your memory on the greatness of God, literally the greatness of God.
So you picture this, a seventh grader who thought that he hung the moon. I was taller than everybody in my grade. I was decently athletic, and I remember watching that video thinking, I am so small. I'm not worth anything.
Yeah.
And I remember that moment of humility where I don't ever want to forget that moment of humility because it allowed me to put our God in perspective. And so that's when it started. And then little did I know, a few months later I would get injured in football, and I played one game in my football career, and that was it. I destroyed my shoulder. I'm on surgery number 4 now. And so it's just one of those freak injuries. But in that, I picked up Guitar Hero. And Guitar Hero 3, man, knocked it out. So
that's how it started.
That's incredible. That's how I taught myself. Well, I didn't teach myself. I had an incredible guitar teacher, Jeff Belcher, who actually is a church planner now.
Was it Baltimore?
In Baltimore, yeah. Our college ministry is there right now.
That's awesome.
It's crazy how the Lord works full circle.
So from Guitar Hero to literally playing guitar.
Guitar Hero to guitar. And
Okay.
I remember I just had surgery and I propped the guitar up and I was teaching myself how to play
Okay.
in a sling. But so no, it's just that's where my love for worship came in. And we've already touched about the Generation Band. I just remember thinking, like, not that I want to do what you guys do, but I want to be a part of moments that you were a part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And be you guys.
Well, you say be a part of those moments that we're a part of, and that what he's saying,
That's a great statement.
that is the presence of God. I mean, just clear and simple. That is just the presence of God, and we were ruined in those moments, because like that, those moments are still moments that we crave.
Yeah.
Because and we experience those moments, from time to time on Sunday mornings. It's just like, man, like this past Sunday morning at church, like I didn't want to leave the service.
Yeah.
I did not want that service to end because God was moving. You could physically, feel the presence of God in at church, and we still have those moments. And it's just like, man, this is really, really good. And when you experience God on a level like that, like I said earlier, it honestly ruins you. Yeah. And if you, it's just stuff that you always want. And I thank God for those moments. Absolutely.
So I have two questions. Hopefully that'll help us, kind of segue into your start of leading worship. So do you remember the first time you led worship? And the second question is how nervous were you? Because I have a story about Nick's and how nervous he was on his first experience.
Yeah, that's a good time.
Unfortunately, mine is on video somewhere.
Okay.
One of
That's
our moms, he had the camcorder set up in the back, and back there. Just
He's not that old.
I know, I'm just kidding.
It was a Sony Handycam.
Kids are like, wait, there was camcorders that big? As they look at their iPhone.
Yeah.
But I'll remember the rehearsal before the Wednesday night that Jamin, our student pastor, was going to have us up there. It was I was a freshman and with junior guys. That was our high school band. And he walks into our rehearsal and he just comes in shaking his head, and we stop and we're thinking that we are about to go on tour. and he goes, "Y'all aren't ready." And I'll just remember thinking, "What you mean we're not ready? I know all these chords. I've got the capo moving. I'm good."
Yeah.
And he just says, "Y'all aren't ready. Y'all sound terrible." And I was like, "Okay." So we worked and worked and worked. So then the first time we led worship, Salvation Is Here. I'd seen Generation Band open up with that 100 times. We knew
that was a popular one.
all the dynamics. And I get up there and Salvation.
Oh,
just
yeah.
terrible.
That is great.
And it's on video somewhere.
I'll have to find that video. If we can
That
find
could
it before
be
we
the
put this
intro,
out. Yeah, we could actually absolutely do that. We would have to find that somewhere.
So were you nervous?
Oh, I was super nervous. I remember just sitting in the MPV.
Yeah.
They had that little back hallway bathroom.
Yeah.
Man, I was just back there just rocking. I'm thinking, I don't
Sounds
know
like
what
me.
I'm going to do.
Oh, yeah.
So we had two experiences to, first of all, Stephen said, he called me one day and said, "Hey, do you want to lead worship?" And we have just been doing some acoustic stuff in the Lighthouse late at night.
Just just playing around, not.
And I was like, when do you want to lead worship? He goes like, "We'll be at North Gardendale Baptist Church in like 20 minutes."
A
I was
youth
like,
pastor there had called me.
holy
Like, hey,
cow.
Yeah.
So we load up and we start leading worship on Wednesday nights. And that was kind of a really small setting. But I think actually before that, I can't remember if it was before or after. Maybe Stephen can.
It was before.
So before that, one Sunday morning, Stephen and I were supposed to do one song for Andy as before he opened up with a Sunday school lesson. And so Andy goes, "All right, boy, when I start praying, y'all walk up on the stage and y'all get ready." So Andy starts praying and Stephen proceeds to throw up.
Oh, yeah.
He is now like
Vomiting.
throwing up in a can. Oh, my God. And like there's an audience of maybe 20.
Yeah, there's 20 or 30 people there.
And I'm like, "Hey, he's about to say amen. Like we got to go. Like, wrap this up." And he would get so nervous. And I think even into the MP days, he would get real nervous.
Yeah, I used to get super, super nervous to the point where I would be physically sick. But some of that wasn't like my nerves. It was just like I was so anxious to get into the service, because we would practice so much that like I was comfortable with doing the songs that we'd be doing. Obviously, just starting out, like I was very, very nervous. Okay. But then after that, it was more just like anxiousness to let's get this thing started.
Yeah.
And I'll ask both of you guys this question because y'all being the leaders of this, of leading worship bands, do you remember the first moment where the presence of God hit and it ruined you in that moment? You're like, "Oh my gosh, we're from the stage perspective, but you're seeing the presence of God fall." And I would ask you, like, when did it, like, did it happen during, with Jamin and them? When did it say, like, oh my gosh, we're a part of something so much bigger than ourselves?
I think for me, it happened on a personal level first. Like it was, I'm spending time, and I used to, when I was in high school, I used to put on, like, I remember one of the first worship albums that I ever listened to that really impacted me was Third Day. I think it was the Offerings album. It had King of Glory on there. It had Thief, Consuming Fire. It had all these songs, Your Love, O Lord. And so, like, I remember it was one of the first, like, live CDs that, like, I listened to. I was like, man, this is really, really good. And I remember being up in my room in my house listening to that, just alone, just like crying, this is, like, I feel God's presence, So for me, it was more like on a personal level, but then going, obviously leading from a stage point, like you talked about, I think it was, this is on video somewhere too. I think it's on YouTube. There's a service that we did, and we started off for a few years doing the generation, and it was great, right? Mm-hmm. We would have, good moments and stuff like that. But I remember there being a point where something broke, where it was like, man, there's a wall that came down, and there was a freedom of worship in that building that we were in, the multipurpose building. And I think it was and that stems from prayer, by the way. That came from us praying on Wednesday nights after church and just seeking God and asking God to move on Thursday nights. And for a while, we prayed for that for a long time. And then it was like, I remember playing Jesus Paid It All, and just seeing people in the audience literally on their face and crying out, not just singing the song, but crying and screaming out to God. And I'm like, holy cow, there's a freedom in this place like we haven't never experienced before. And that, for me, that's when it was.
You actually had to, I remember there'd be times you would have to back off the mic because you physically could, like, you would be weeping. Yeah. And so, how does that, I guess, relate to you? Like, was there a moment that sticks out that kind of like Stephen was talking about?
Yeah, it's a lot of it is like personal time. Mine happened when I was rehearsing for a service. It was just me, I just feeling like I wasn't qualified. I didn't know what I was doing. I barely knew how to play the guitar, but I just remember it with everything. Yeah, you're just sitting there. It's this massive song with this big congregational moment, and I just remember trying to learn it in my room, and the word with that phrase with everything, we will shout for your glory. We will shout for your praise. And I was just thinking, there was a moment of, again, humility where I was like, man, with everything that I have, like, I want to lead, but I don't want it to be about me, man. I just want God to speak through those moments, and just that phrase. And it's still to this day, if anybody were to say, if you could play one more worship song, what would you play? I was like, with everything. Yeah. Because I think it's just it's an incredible and powerful statement to say that with everything that we have as a group, as a church, as a generation, we're going to shout with everything that we have. And so that was, to this day, with everything, is that moment where I just realized, like, man, this is so much bigger than just the band in a black student room. Like,
oh yeah, there's no doubt. I remember playing that song the last generation service that we had, and just like Brent said several times, I mean, I'm having just to step back because the presence of God is so strong. I just want to, like, I don't feel worthy to stand. Yeah. Like I want to bow my head. Like it's like I'm just like, my gosh, this is so heavy, heavy in a good way with the presence of God.
I think it was really powerful, and to be in a worship set to where the point to where, whether it was Keith or Stephen or Danielle, we would all, or even Mary Beth, we would all actually quit singing, and the audience would be an audience of one. You always hear that, would be literally crying out, and they were leading the worship set. We were just I guess the instruments to give sound, but they were leading, and it was powerful. I think, like Stephen said, walls are broken down, and there is something, everybody says, well, worship's just more than music, to which I 100% agree. Stephen spoke about the amount of prayer. We did prayer on Wednesday nights before the Thursday service. I think prayer always starts the catalyst of what was going to happen on that Thursday night. But people have actually been able to experience. So people may have grown up saying, well, maybe I shouldn't lift my hands. Maybe I should only lift my hands during sporting events, or maybe I shouldn't get on my face before the Lord, or is it okay if I'm a grown man to cry? And holy cow, when God gets a hold of your life, I mean, Stephen has seen me, like when it finally clicked with me, it being just broken before the Lord. So when you see all these facets happening, people being broken, people getting, working through sin and working through whatever's going on in life, addictions and drugs, and even people that had some spiritual things going on, that we're seeing this happen. And then God says, all right, I want to take what y'all are doing, and we want you to go to Jemison, to Jackson, Mississippi, to Tennessee, to wherever we're going, and see and watch this happen. Like, that was very powerful. Like, we're a bunch of nobodies, because we would go play at these big events with thousands of people, and we'd get done and we'd walk outside to our little bitty merch table, which is about the size of this.
Yeah, y'all can't see this huge coffee
it's
table.
It's about like a 2x2 table.
It is.
And people will be like, oh my gosh, they're out here. And I'm like, well, I'm just a fireman, and like tomorrow I got to get on the fire truck. And Stephen was, working at
church part-time.
So we were a bunch of nobodies. And that was the cool part about it is like, we were nobodies that didn't know what we were doing, but God still said, I'll still use you to see people worship God.
Yeah, there was one time I remember a kid walked up and he was like, hey, y'all sign my Bible. You probably remember this. And I was like, I'm not signing your Bible. Like,
here's a keychain.
That's one thing I'm not doing. I'll sign a shirt or something else, but I will not sign your Bible, son. I cannot do that. Yeah. Sorry. But yeah, those things were really, really awesome. But I would say this too, from a worship aspect, worship leader aspect too. I would say those, as far as like preparation, when you're preparing for worship, I don't know what you do, but like there was moments and times where I would, try to put together a set list, and I would actually, do that set list like at my house, or, if I was at the church by myself or something, I would go through it, by myself, to not necessarily to basically, okay, this song goes great with this, or this goes good with that. But it was also like, I wanted to go through it. And if God was blessing that moment by myself, like I knew that God would also move in the service too. If that makes any sense at all. Cause there was moments where it was like, okay, I don't know what we're going to do this Thursday night, but okay, let me go out here and play some songs real quick by myself. And if I feel God moving in my own life, like I know God's also going to be touching other people's lives too.
Yeah. Those moments of, I love preparing for a set, but it's also the most stressful thing, because it's like, I mean, you have an opportunity to set the stage for the word of God to be spoken. And so a lot of times, the easiest thing to do is to play the songs that everybody loves, but sometimes you have to play the songs that communicate, a scripture that goes along with the message. There's just times where it's not you just chose 4 songs. It's like, man, this is a reflection of what God's doing in you the past week, the past month, or what you're expecting him to do. That's
so good what you said too. It brings me to this, is that I can tell that you are a mature believer, not just as a Christian, but even as a worship leader, because you said we get up there to prepare people for the Word of God. It's our job as worship leaders to get people to the throne, but also so they can hear from God. Yeah. And I used to think in that preparation for services that we would have to have the perfect set list for God to show up. We'd have to have, if we're ever going to have a revival, like we're going to have the best worship set list that there has ever been.
Or just play every Hillsong, because we want something everybody likes.
We want something everybody likes. I even remember going to look back at services, not just at where we were at Gardendale, but like on mainstream, like looking at YouTube, like looking at Bethel, which, whatever, we can say some good things and bad things about some of the songs they write. But like watching some of those services, I'm like, man, it looks like God showed up there. Like, what songs do they do? I quickly realized within the past probably 3 years that we don't have to have the perfect set list for God to show up. The gospel of Jesus Christ is enough. I love worship. I talked to Jamin Grubbs this past week. Jamin called me, wanted to know if I could come up there for Sunday because his guy was out. I'm like, we're going to be out of town. I'm sorry. But we ended up talking for a while. And I told Jamin, I said, Jamin, I've come to the point where I've realized, I was like, worship is great. And if there's anybody that loves worship music, it's me. But that's not what it's about. It is about people hearing the gospel of Jesus Christ, because that is what changes lives. And people can hear the gospel through worship songs. I'm not saying that can't happen, because there are some incredible songs that are gospel centered. But it's really somebody presenting that gospel. Those are when lives are saved. So yeah, I've quickly come to realize that the past several years that, man, it's not all about what songs we do. We've had discussions before. Just to be completely transparent, there's songs that you have to sing on Sundays where you're like, I don't really care for this song. Yeah. There's songs that I'm singing to with you guys when I'm out in the congregation. I'm like, I don't really like this song. But I learned how to worship before I was even picked up a guitar. I was in the Lighthouse running PowerPoint for Ryan Wingo, who was at our church at the time. That's where I learned how to worship, was reading the words to every song that he played. And a lot of the songs he played were really good songs. But I remember sitting back there just like crying, reading the words. I'm like, man, this is powerful stuff. If you guys read some of the hymns, pick up a hymnal, start reading some of the lyrics in these songs. And I'm telling you, it's powerful stuff. You might not like the music behind it, which whatever, but it's powerful, powerful stuff.
So one of the perspectives for anybody that goes to church or been in church for a long time is that we've always heard, we kind of touched on it, is I don't like this song, or this is, man, it's not the latest and greatest. But we have to pull ourselves back, as worship leaders are not performing for the congregation. We are, from my perspective, is we are singing and worshiping God. Like, we're not trying to put on some performance or some audition. So worshipers, people coming in, have to have this mindset is it's not about whether you like a song or not. It's just singing to the one, praying to the one. Hey, if you don't like that song, take that moment and pray. Take that moment and be silent. Let God, speak to you. So some of it's just perspective of, we're not really here to put on a show for the audience. We're here to sing to the one. But what has worship taught you over the last couple of years?
To kind of speak to what you're saying too, there's a lot of criticism, a lot of things that happen, when you lead a song that came out of another church. Yeah. And they're thinking, oh, I'm not really crazy about that song. And I've had to kind of put it in perspective that a lot of the songs that come out of local churches that the church globally leads, it came from that church from a specific season. Man, God was doing something incredible for that moment for that church. And so when we lead it here, we're not saying, God, do the same thing here. We're doing, God, I want something. I want to see you move like you're moving there, but in a whole different way that we're seeking you here.
That's good.
And so sometimes we get lost in the performance, like you're saying, of it has to be exactly like it was at this conference or this worship service in South Carolina. Well, no, it's going to be this way in Gardendale, and my prayer is that God would just do something for Gardendale and to carry globally.
Sure.
And that's just a side point. But for your question that I don't remember because I
just said, what do you think that God showed you or taught you?
What have you learned
from leading worship?
I mean, obviously tons of stuff, right?
Yeah, there's
one main thing you can think of.
For me, and I really feel like God has been continually teaching, is to not talk. Sometimes I feel like the worship leaders can sometimes preach before the message.
Yeah.
And I've really tried to seek God, and Lord, my preparation was done in choosing this music, allowing you to speak through this music. You don't need my opinion on top of it.
Yeah.
You don't need my words on top of it. Man, I just, like I said earlier, I just my prayer is that we set the stage for the word of God to be preached.
Yeah.
Because I love Pastor Kevin, and he's been such an encouragement to me. And I remember when I first started full time, got up there with all this confidence, and I would my prayer before the message would be this long drawn out prayer. I'd have point A, point B, and then to have an outline for my prayer.
Sure.
And he always handled it with such grace. Amen, amen. Thank you for that. And he never had to say anything, but I realized, okay, I need to just be quiet and let God speak through the sermon and not speak through the prayer before the sermon.
Sure.
And so I think for me, it's just God's really been teaching me to just be quiet and worship Him through His Spirit and those moments like that.
Yeah, I think I always relate things to sports. I love sports, and so watching these big events in sports, the World Series. Last night was the Stanley Cup final, which, we don't have a lot of hockey fans around here, but I like hockey because I used to go watch the Birmingham Bulls play when I was a kid. And I used to play as a kid too in the streets, with the roller skates or the incline skates or whatever, rollerblades. And we used to play hockey in the streets. But anyways, you got the Super Bowl, the college national championship with football, all those things, or baseball, World Series. You see those incredible moments in sports where something big happens. Somebody hits a grand slam to win the ball game, game 7 of the World Series. I think of I don't really care for the Blue Jays, but I think of Joe Carter. I think they beat the Braves one year, literally, or the Phillies. I can't remember. It was the Phillies or the Braves. Anyway, Joe Carter hits a game-winning home run to win the entire World Series. And so the announcer says, "Touch them all, Joe, touch them all," as he's running around the bases. But good announcers in those moments do not say anything at all. They
let the moment happen.
They let the moment happen. And so in those moments when you're leading worship and God is moving, it's one of those things where you're just like, I'm just gonna, like, God's got the stage. He don't need me to say anything. And it's kind of like what Brent said earlier. There was a lot of those moments where when you're leading worship, you just have to step back from the microphone and just let the people sing. Mm-hmm. Let the people, because at this point we're already to the throne. Like, they don't need our help. Like, we're here. And there are moments where God urges you to maybe lead into that moment, or to say something to get to that. But still, I always, like I said, refer to sports, and that's what I think about those announcers. Those really good announcers, they'll let that, when that moment happens, they let it go.
Yeah, that's good.
So with us, with the generation, if you've been to some services, Andy used to have us play about 18 songs on Thursday nights and stuff, which was it was good, and also it was also tough. I think it allowed us to grow a lot musically because we were forced to learn a lot of songs and stuff. So, but with 18 songs of service, it was bound to happen. There would be a moment that would be, we were off tempo, the drums and the guitar didn't match. So we had a pretty big mess up on, what song was it? David Lee would call it out right now because our timing was off.
It was All We Need. Hey, Jacob.
So it was with All We Need. And we had a moment to where Stephen is actually he starts the song. So he's doing the intro.
It was All We Need by Charlie Hall. It was because we have all we needed.
Yeah, but there was another one too.
Okay.
The timing was off. But I just remember, so he starts to click or whatever was going on. Stephen's starting, and we immediately know that his strum pattern and what David Lee's doing
is completely off.
So we didn't even sing. So Stephen is still playing and turns around and looks to David Lee and shaking his head like something's not right. And then David Lee's back there going,
David's like, I'm on the click. You're not right.
Something's not right. And we have this nonverbal talk for about, it seemed like 3 minutes, but it was probably only 30 seconds of, we are so far off on this right now. It was a train wreck. So do you remember a moment that sticks out to you that was like, this is going south? Oh, we actually even had a drum shield fall.
Had a drum shield fall. Yeah, that's a great question. Was there
a moment that you sticks out?
The moment where you're just like, I remember this happening, it was terrible.
We should just quit.
I remember, like, I've had my guitar strap break.
I've had
the
that
MPB,
happen.
but most recently we had a college service, and now everybody's doing, they got the click and you got tracks and loops and all this stuff.
Yeah, I hate all that. But anyway, it works.
It's a blessing and a curse sometimes.
It is.
Well, it was a curse this night. We started off the opener. It's got this big synth lead. Well, it glitches, and drummer's playing to the click, but the loop's not with the click. So you got this, and it's just I wave. You got people all in the, college students, your friends. It's like those are the hardest when they know you, and it's like, oh, we're gonna start that again. Sorry guys. Hey, look to your neighbor and give him a high five. And it's like, how do you recover from just Club La Vila starting off?
We need videos for all this so we can turn it into Worship Fails.
That's what I was going to say. There's an Instagram page out there that
is it called Worship Fails?
Worship Fails.
It shows nothing but worship fails, and obviously as worship leaders, you don't want to end up on there. But it is comical because we've all been there.
Look,
before.
It happens to absolutely everybody. The guys that have sold millions of albums, and the guys who obviously haven't sold an album, and they're still helping the local church, leading in worship. And there was several moments for me that I'd remember singing just completely starting off and like vocally in the wrong key, and like, how do I fix this? I mean, it's like I just got to stop singing, and try to find it. But that stuff happened a lot. We had a drum shield fall. I remember Mary Beth was leading. This was on practice one night, but she just fell off the stage. So her stool, she was playing keyboard. Her stool was at the very edge of the stage, and we're just playing, and she just boom, just nailed the ground. And my first instinct was to laugh.
It was with everything.
It probably was.
No, I'm talking about the timing issue. With everything, we had I'm sorry, that was such a side moment. But it was with everything that we had a complete train wreck of our timing, and we couldn't even start the song.
We have moments like that, but also, on the flip side, there's also when you play with people for a long time, I love that, because me and David he still is an incredible drummer, but me and David think a lot alike. We're just on the same page with not just music, but just a lot of stuff. We still text all the time. I'll send him a text about something. He's like, I was thinking the same thing, or whatever. So like we're very. He's a lot smarter than I am, but we're on the same level, thinking sometimes. And so a lot of times during worship, as the worship leader, you and the drummer, like you got to have a tight relationship with the drummer. You got to know what the drummer's doing. The drummer's got to know what you're doing. In the generation, we were free to do a lot of stuff, right? So, like Cooper said, we had 15 songs on a Thursday night, and so some of those songs were not rehearsed because we didn't have time. Like, we would rehearse the main set list of probably about 8 songs, and then, which is still a lot. But obviously anything that happened after that was just off the cuff. And so David was awesome with following me. And I knew where David was about to go, and things like that. So it's very important, if you're in a worship band, like, practice a lot, play a lot, play with the people that you're going to be playing with during the service, because that's where you develop a relationship, a musical relationship, to know, hey, he's about to go here, or she's about to do this, or you just know, you just know. So that's pretty important too. If we have any worship people out there listening, probably not, but we could, I don't know.
Probably laughing at us because they've been in the same shoes.
They have been. If we can find a video, I wish I could find a video of us messing up. If I can, I'll try to post it or send it to Worship Fails. Tanner's on TV every Sunday, so like we should be able to find one.
Something.
Thank you for the media ministry at Gardendale, because they cover up a lot of our goofiness.
Yeah,
but no, it is our Howard Everhart.
Yeah,
this is random, but I just remembered just processing everything. He spoke the most encouragement to me. If you lead worship, this is just kind of a word for you, but Mr. Howard was our orchestra director. He did so many incredible things. He was a wizard at music.
Yes.
He passed in 2018, but I'll never forget the first time I ever led worship. It was for the college or it was the high school Wednesday night service that they recognized the graduating seniors, and they asked the student worship band to come play. And I'm thinking,
that's terrifying.
I don't even have an acoustic guitar. All I have is this Fender Stratocaster with no amp. So I went, if you can find it, I went direct to an electric guitar to a direct box. No effects, no amp, no nothing. It sounded like terrible. But I thought I was cool because I had the white button down with the collar popped.
Yeah.
It was a big deal.
Oh, yeah, the collar popped.
I remember we sitting back in the little green room at the South Campus, and all of us just rocking. We got dry heave, and you're just nervous.
Sure,
this is like big church. And he just looks at us. He goes, if there ever comes a time where you're not nervous before you lead, you need to stop.
Yeah.
And I was like, you mean this doesn't get easier? He said, it gets way easier. You can do it. You can do it with no preparation, but that's bad. If you're comfortable and you're able to do it with no divine intervention, with no like seeking God before you do it, you need to stop. And those words, man, as a worship leader and really in life as just a believer, if I ever approach a moment to sit with our King of Kings and Lord of Lords with no preparation, with no spiritual preparation, then I need to stop. I need to seek His face in a way like I haven't before.
That's really good. I heard Steve Gaines say it, and it goes along with this too, with what you just said. He said, in your Christian life, when holy things become common, you need to check yourself. So like if you're in service, and just because you might not have a leadership position in church, when you're in a service and you see a baptism and you're like, that's cool, and you might clap or whatever. If that doesn't affect you, like you might need to check yourself. If you're in a worship service and you see people go to the front after the message, maybe for salvation, if that doesn't affect you, you need to check yourself. Those holy moments are special because a life has changed. I mean, we're literally celebrating from death to life. And so when those things happen, and you better have some sort of reaction. And I'm not saying you have to stand up and woohoo and do all that stuff, like just like internally. Mm-hmm. Like if it doesn't affect you, like something might be wrong. I would venture out to say, hey, you might not be seeking Jesus like you should, or you might not have a relationship with Jesus. But yeah, I remember Brother Steve telling me something similar to that, and I was like, holy cow, that is really good, because I do not ever want to live this life and take stuff for granted, especially the holy moments. I used to have to check myself all the time, because the generation, we would see stuff every Thursday night happen, a lot of stuff to where it became the normal, which was good. Yeah. But at the same time, I was like, I don't want to take this for granted. I want to make sure that we are seeking God and we celebrate every decision. I don't care if we're 3 years old or 99 years old. Like, we're going to celebrate every decision that was made, because God just moved in that person's life. So anyway, yeah, I wanted to share that, because that goes along with what Howard said, and that's wisdom, man. I mean, that's straight wisdom.
I think it's something encouraging, because we've been laughing about worship fails. Yeah. Those are the moments where, like, I appreciate those. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because you think back to those little droplets of wisdom that you've been spoken over the years. It's like, man, this isn't about you. This isn't about me.
That's
like,
right.
We're all human. Like, we're not. We've been set apart as like a Christian, but we're not set apart as other believers. Like, we just have the opportunity to lead from a platform.
Absolutely.
So 2 questions as we can kind of close up. We're about 44 minutes into this, but for me, I have a question of, is there one night or one moment that you remember that sticks out? And I'll lead off with, we had a generation service that Pastor Kevin was gracious enough to allow us to have the choir come in.
Oh man!
So we put was you there that night? So we actually put a stadium, like a little mini stadium, up for all the choir to come in. So we rehearsed with them, I think, and we were going to do a couple songs with them. And the presence of God, like when they started
just the rehearsal.
During rehearsal, like what song was it they went into?
I think it was "Lord You're Holy." Faith Harper was singing. I think she led that song.
But like, I'm getting chills now. But
I didn't tell you.
The presence of God fell on a Tuesday night, and we were like, oh my gosh. So when Thursday night got there, that we were so much in anticipation of what was going to happen. But we actually did that song twice that night, because I think we actually spent most of the night just worshiping.
We did,
because Andy might have gotten up there for 10 minutes and gave something, but it was basically like, come get set free. But man, that was a moment for me that like will probably forever stand out of the presence of God.
I remember Faith. She couldn't sing the song that night. I mean, she started, but when we got into it, it was like the moments where you're leading a song. You're like, I can't do this right now.
I have nothing to give.
I can't do this. I want to just sit in the presence of God. That was a very, very strong night that I'll never forget either. I mean, it was. And I'll say this, but I'll let you talk in just a minute. When you're going through those rehearsals, because you even said, that moment where you felt God move was in rehearsal. And as if you're in a worship band, if you're helping out with church, whatever you're doing, helping out with worship stuff, when you go through the rehearsal, don't think of it as just, we need to get through this. Go ahead and worship during that rehearsal. There are moments we've had in rehearsal that were way better than the actual service, because it was just 3 or 4 or 5 of us up on stage, like getting after it, worshiping, because no one else is in the room. It's just like, hey, it's just us. Obviously we're doing this to try to get better, but at the same time I want you to focus on worshiping too, because that's the most important part. But is there a moment where you can think of
I mean, I wish I would have been there with the choir in that moment.
Yeah.
Those moments you're like, man, I want to be a part of that. But for me, there's a few, but the one most recently that happened was on Father's Day. And it really, it's one of those moments where it's like it hadn't really set in until, you just keep reflecting on it. Pastor Kevin, it was an incredible message to our men, just a great challenge. But we closed by calling all the men to the front of the stage. And that morning, everything had gone wrong that could have gone wrong. Click tracks weren't working. We needed bagpipes in a song. We had just sung an Amazing Grace. The choir just killed it. It was an incredible moment of worship. Yes. But everything had gone wrong. And I changed the response song that morning because I was like, I don't know. I just really feel like the Lord. And we changed it to a song called Evidence. Yeah. And I had no idea Pastor Kevin was going to call everybody to the front. But I remember leading the song, and it talks about the evidence is all around us, of God's faithfulness is all around us. Yeah. And I look, and there's men just lined the bottom of the room. Yeah. And I look, and I see my old baseball coach. I see my uncle. Yeah. I see, a guy that discipled me. I see our student pastor. I see our college, I see all these faces, and we're singing a song that talks about the evidence of God's faithfulness. And I'll just never, what I felt in that moment was just like, Lord, thank you. Just an unexplainable feeling. I didn't know how we made it through the song, but I just thought it was crazy. I now know, that you had a crazy morning, so you could just rest and see, look, this is the evidence of God's faithfulness right here.
That's so good. We had a service recently that I helped lead at, and Kevin got up to speak and was just, he had a message planned out, and he said, hey, I'm not going to do this message what I thought. He said, I'm going to speak from my heart. God's burdened my heart about this. And I'd actually gone down to our life group class. This was the first service. And I think I talked to you before the service. Hey, I'm not going to come back up for the end. I'm just going to stay down here. And then you sent me a text. And this funny thing is, I was in our life group class and told Jack, I said, I feel like I need to go back upstairs. She said, okay, we'll go. And so as soon as I got into the sanctuary, you sent me a text. You're like, hey, Kevin wants to do that song that you sang again at the end. And when I walked in the sanctuary, it was one of those I can feel God's presence. Kevin started preaching on revival and all this stuff. And then we get up to lead at the end, and I couldn't sing the song. Tanner, you had to step in and sing, because it was one of those moments where it was God, I just saw the passion in the congregation for exactly what Kevin was preaching on, for revival. That's my heart. And to see people across the congregation literally in tears because God is moving in their life, I was just taken back. I was like, man, this is another one of those moments. God, thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for this. But I get so emotional sometimes that it's just I can't. That's probably why I'm not up there playing on Sundays a lot, because I literally would there's those moments I'm just I can't, hey, someone else is going to have to do this because I'm a mess right now. I'm a ball of tears. But it's just awesome to experience the presence of God. And, it's incredible to be able to experience with friends, obviously, and family and things like that, because that's something that I get emotional about too. If I'm ever up on stage and I look at it and I see my wife worshiping, it's just geez, and sometimes I'll see Lindley, that, Jecka might bring Lindley in, and I'll see her out there, and, and it's just my family gets to see me, worship. And men, if any guys listening or watching, the family they'll follow you, period. You need to be a good example in worship. If you're not up on stage, or if you're not in a leadership position at church, you lead your family. And you have that leadership position right now. God has ordained you for that. And so one way to start in worship is to show an outward expression of love to our Savior, to God. And that's, hey, lift your hands in worship, sing, clap, participate in that worship. Your wife will love you more because of that. I promise you that. Your children need to see you worshiping. It's just an outward expression. Not all of us, or some of us are very, want to keep to ourselves. You might not want to raise your hands. I understand that, but just, close your eyes and worship, and just enjoy the presence of God, and give a little bit back to Him.
So, just to kind of recap from the beginning, today was a little bit different with There's More podcast. We come at it from, worship leader standpoints, and how like we talked before we hit record, is your story wasn't crazy. You weren't out doing all these wild and crazy things, but what that hopefully speaks to anybody listening is your story matters. You can have walked the most moral walk in the world and done all the greatest things in the world, but there was still a gap. And with the title, There Is More, you realize there was a moment that there had to be more to life than whatever it was offering you, even at a young age. You said you got saved at 8, but you realized there was a gap. But obviously God's grace allowed you to not go down some paths that other people have been down. But it's still a great story. It's still powerful in the fact that there was separation from God, and Jesus was that answer. You realized it at 8, and he's brought you so far and taught you so much. So it's still a powerful story, and we're very thankful that you shared your heartbeat from funny stories to God moments to how you got started with rock band. So it's really cool how God can orchestrate some things that we never know about. You getting injured allowed you that moment, right? He would say, well, that's the route I want to go. I want to get injured to end up shaping my path. But I mean, look what's happened now. So that's really cool. So we really appreciate you sharing that.
Absolutely. But before we go, we got to ask some fun questions.
There
right?
we go.
So I'll start off with this. Like, who's maybe your favorite? We talked a little bit this about before, but like maybe your favorite worship like songwriter or artist.
Oh, that's tough because we talked about two good ones right before. I love Hillsong. That's what I grew up on. So I think Joel Houston is an incredible songwriter.
Yeah.
But as far as the local church right now, we talked. Phil Wickham is killing it.
And Phil Wickham's incredible. I mean, he's got a new album out. Go listen to it. Everything he does is good. Very worshipful songs that is easy for the church to sing.
And I remember You're Beautiful, his song. Good.
So
when we arrived, man, that moment.
Yeah.
Quick story on that. I actually broke my guitar singing that song. I got so excited. Sometimes I get excited, I'll do things I shouldn't do. And it was that moment, like I stopped playing and I hit my guitar on the side of my guitar like that, and it literally busted. Cracked. Now I glued it back together. It doesn't sound the best, but it still works. Is there a favorite worship song you can think of? I mean, there's been so many. Is it With Everything?
With Everything.
Yeah. That's what I figured. Favorite restaurant or maybe favorite food that you like?
My favorite. Ooh, that's good. I mean, obviously we're big Chick-fil-A fans.
Homemade pizza.
Fine's house. Yeah, but we've been making. You got us on the homemade pizza.
Although the pizza was terrible, I burnt the pizza that night.
It was the community of it, man. We love making homemade pizza. We have Pizza Fridays at our house.
That's awesome. We'll have to do that again soon.
Top manly movie.
Top manly movie. Ooh, is it Manly? Angels in the Outfield?
That's manly. That's sports. It's baseball, right?
I was about to say, I watched that movie every night before I went to bed as a kid.
That was a great movie. Great movie. My favorite part of that movie is when I can't remember the guy's name. It was the pitcher that was terrible, but he would run and slide on the mound right before the little pop up slide.
It reminds me of this Brett. Brett Phillips from the
he's
Brewers.
hilarious.
He's so funny. Like baseball needs that.
Oh, absolutely.
Some entertainment.
Yeah, that's good.
The GOAT.
Yeah,
Michael LeBron.
That is definitely Michael Jordan.
There you go.
Thank you.
Fair.
Thank you for saying that.
And we don't even have to say we're sorry, Travis, anymore because he actually.
Travis has come around.
He's in.
He has realized that Jordan is better than LeBron. So it is what it is. But Tanner, thank you a lot for joining us. I appreciate and love our friendship, relationship, and anytime I have any questions, I always ask Tanner about stuff. So because he knows a little bit about everything. So if you got any questions, you can give him a call. His number is
email him at.
Yeah. Hey, we appreciate you guys watching and listening. If you have any questions, you can send us an email. There's more podcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram. I've been trying to put out some more posts on Instagram that will kind of give you some like daily devotions or some daily scripture, stuff like that you can marinate on whenever you want to. You can also follow us on Facebook. That's where some of you are watching this live right now, which is really, really awesome. I love that feature. But we really do appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you later.